138 volcanoes under Antarctica ice. Scientists have uncovered the largest volcanic region on Earth, 2 kilometers below the surface of the vast ice sheet that covers West Antarctica.The project, by Edinburgh University researchers, has revealed almost 100 volcanoes, with the highest as tall as the Eiger, which stands at almost 4,000 meters in. Switzerland.Geologists say this huge region is likely to dwarf that of East Africa's volcanic ridge, currently rated the densest concentration of volcanoes in the world. And the activity of this range could have worrying consequences, they have warned. If one of these volcanoes were to erupt, it could further destabilize West Antarctica's ice sheets, said glacier expert Robert Bingham, one of the paper's authors. Anything that causes the melting of ice, which an eruption certainly would, is likely to speed up the flow of ice into the sea. How active volcanoes? That is something we need to determine as quickly as possible. The Edinburgh Volcano Survey, reported in the Geological Society's Special Publications series, involved studying the underside of the West Antarctica ice sheet for hidden peaks of basalt rock similar to those produced by the region's other volcanoes. Their tips actually lie above the ice and have been spotted by polar explorers over the past century. But how many lie below the ice? This question was originally asked by the team's youngest member, Max van Wyk de Vries, an undergraduate at the university's School of Geosciences and a self-confessed volcano fanatic. He set up the project with the help of Bingham. Their study involved analyzing measurements made by previous surveys, which involved the use of ice-penetrating radar, carried either by planes or land vehicles, to survey strips of the West Antarctic ice. The results were then compared with satellite and database records and geological information from other aerial surveys. Essentially, we were looking for evidence of volcanic cones sticking up into the ice. After the team had collated the results, it reported a staggering 91 previously unknown volcanoes, adding to the 47 others that had been discovered over the previous century of exploring the region. These newly discovered volcanoes range in height from 100 to 3,850 meters. All are covered in ice, which sometimes lies in layers that are more than 4 kilometers thick. In the region, these active peaks are concentrated in a region known as the West Antarctic Rift System, which stretches 3,500 kilometers from Antarctica's Ross Ice Shelf to the Antarctic Peninsula. We had not expected to find anything like that number. We have almost trebled the number of volcanoes known to exist in West Antarctica. We also suspect there are even more on the bed of the sea that lies under the Ross Ice Shelf, so that I think it is very likely this region will turn out to be the densest region of volcanoes in the world, greater even than East Africa, where Mounts Nyiragongo, Kilimanjaro, Longonot and all the other active volcanoes are concentrated. The discovery is particularly important because the activity of these volcanoes could have crucial implications for the rest of the planet. If one erupts, it could further destabilize some of the region's ice sheets, which have already been affected by global warming. Meltwater outflows into the Antarctic Ocean could trigger sea level rises. We just don't know about how active these volcanoes have been in the past. The continent's frigid reputation is well known, but researchers from the University of Edinburgh analyzed radar scans of the West Antarctic Rift System and found 138 volcanoes hiding under the thick ice sheet. Of those, 91 were previously unidentified, they say, and the discovery could change our understanding of how the overlaying ice layer grows and shrinks. Hidden volcanoes. The West Antarctic Rift is bounded by the Transantarctic Mountains, stopping just shy of the peninsula, and is largely covered by the Ross Ice Shelf. It's where the seams of the Antarctic plate are beginning to split, and the continent is pulling itself apart a bit like a piece of taffy. As the continental crust thins, magma can bubble through, causing volcanoes to sprout upward. A similar process is occurring in the East African Rift, an area that served as an important comparison for their analysis. In Antarctica, however, the land is covered by ice that can be more than a mile thick, leaving much of the underlying terrain shrouded in mystery. Our only glimpses come via radar data obtained from aerial surveys conducted over the years. Using already existing data from the British Antarctic Survey, the Edinburgh researchers hunted volcanoes by looking for cones. Based on measurements of other volcanoes worldwide, they knew that eruptions usually create cone-shaped mountains with a specific height-to-width ratio. With this knowledge in hand, all they had to do was find the rocky projections under the ice that fit the profile. They assembled a list of these rocky cones and then applied a few additional constraints, like the presence of magnetic and gravitational anomalies, to arrive at their final figure. The study was published by the Geological Society of London. The distribution of the 91 likely volcanoes roughly aligns with the jagged continental rift, as would be expected. Along with the East African Rift, this stretch of Antarctica is now one of the most volcano-dense regions in the world, according to the researchers. However, not all of them may be active anymore, as the researchers' data only reveals physical features, and doesn't track geothermal activity. That region actually sees very few earthquakes, as John Cottle, a geology professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara, points out, something that normally correlates with eruptions. It could be that many of the volcanoes are now extinct, he says. Activity deep down. Even if most of the volcanoes no longer spew molten rock, it's clear that volcanic activity is still occurring, according to a recent study that found a surprising amount of heat flow underneath the glacier. One of Antarctica's most famous volcanoes, Mount Erebus, is located in the region and has been active for some 1.3 million years, and Mount Sidley, the highest volcano in Antarctica, is also nearby. The presence of glacial volcanoes may sound like cause for alarm in a time when worries of melting ice sheets abound, but the reality is more complex. While thermal activity underneath glaciers can cause them to move faster as the bottom layer melts, it's never been seen as a major factor in the past. While the discovery of dozens of volcanoes under the ice certainly indicates that Antarctica is more geologically active previously believed, it's still not known how many are actually likely to erupt soon and what the consequences will be. In fact, the volcanoes themselves could act as a kind of brake by making the terrain more uneven and inhibiting the flow of ice. Models have shown that the rate of ice sheet retreat strongly depends on the shape and roughness of the surface beneath the ice. If the rock bed of the ice sheet is smooth, then retreat can proceed rapidly, but if the bed contains lots of topography, like volcanic cones, or craters, then this could slow the rate of retreat a lot, Cottle says. If the ice sheet continues to thin, however, the progressive unloading of weight could have a catalyzing effect on volcanic activity. Studies in Iceland indicate that as the ice fades, eruptions become more common. This is both because the rocks are more likely to melt when the pressure is removed and because gases trapped in the magma can get released, spurring eruptions. This could lead to a feedback effect where melting ice causes eruptions, which in turn melt more ice and continue the cycle. Almost 138 volcanoes have been newly identified beneath the ice covering West Antarctica. It's not yet known whether they're active, but if they are, it could spell added trouble for ice sheets already in retreat because of global warming. If they erupted, they would create water beneath the ice, says Robert Bingham at the University of Edinburgh, UK. That would make the ice above flow faster. So it would have the potential to increase the losses of ice we're already seeing. Bingham and his colleagues identified the volcanoes by examining an existing dataset called BedMap2, a collection of ground-penetrating radar scans made from aeroplanes or vehicles above or on the surface. The most volcanism that is going in the world at present is in regions that have only recently lost their glacier covering after the end of the last ice age. These places include Iceland and Alaska. Theory suggests that this is occurring because, without ice sheets on top of them, there is a release of pressure on the region's volcanoes and they become more active. And this could happen in West Antarctica, where significant warming in the region caused by climate change has begun to affect its ice sheets. If they are reduced significantly, this could release pressure on the volcanoes that lie below and lead to eruptions that could further destabilize the ice sheets and enhance sea level rises that are already affecting our oceans.